Hello everyone, welcome back to another video in our employment series. Today I am interviewing a teacher and asking her all your burning questions. So we have Hannah with us. Thank you so much for being here, Hannah. Can you tell us a little bit about you and about what you're doing as a job at the moment?
Yeah, so I'm Hannah Dempsey. I am a geography teacher through in Inverness High School. I live in Murray, so I commute every day, which is quite long, but I absolutely love it. I love my kids. Doing it for 4 years now, so I thoroughly recommend it if anyone is thinking about being a teacher.
Awesome. So the first question we have is, what is something people don't realise is part of your job?
A lot of people assume that teachers just teach, and I think for me, I go home every single night and obviously do like quite a lot of marking, and I do a lot of planning. And so for me, every single lesson I teach 30 lessons a week, and every single lesson takes approximately an hour to plan. Oof. So yeah, it's quite long. I mean, obviously maybe if you're in your career a wee bit longer, that process does speed up a little bit. But I would say throughout all of my holidays, mostly the summer holiday, I do a lot of planning in those holidays. So when teachers or people get upset that teachers have long holidays, it's so that we can plan all our lessons.
Yeah.
And I would probably say my second thing that a lot of teachers do is they worry about their kids. Like I go home every night and I think about my kids, or think about conversations I've had, or are they all properly clothed and fed and watered, etc. So I don't know about other teachers, but I always have a toaster and 2 loaves of bread in my cupboard so that any hungry kids or anybody who's just forgotten and left the house without breakfast, they've always got toast and they have marmalade, jam or butter in my classroom.
Oh, that's so lovely.
So yeah, little things like that. Teaching is not just about physically standing in front of a classroom and delivering education. It is making sure their welfare is they're in check, make sure everybody's safe. It's making sure you've got an open door policy, that you are open and anybody can come and ask you questions or chat if you need to chat. So yeah, I like to think of myself as a person who's quite approachable.
Yeah. So, how's that been for you then, with like lockdown and not seeing them as much? Like, has that been quite difficult for you?
Yeah, I'm hating it. I think for me in particular, I work in quite a deprived school. So a lot of our kids are struggling at the moment because they don't have access to the internet, or they don't have access to computers online, etc. So they're struggling with that connection, but also I'm struggling not checking in with them, you know. And actually, if they don't have the internet, just to email you and be like, yeah, I'm fine, Miss Dempsey. Like, worrying about those kids that you worry about every single day and I've not heard from them in a month is yeah, it's challenging. It is challenging.
It kind of leads quite nicely on to the next question, which is, what is the hardest part of being a teacher?
Probably trying to switch off. I think it's probably the biggest thing, trying to switch off. So going home at night and I end up having to do marking or planning just because there's not enough hours in the day. But on top of that, just switching off from emails, people's struggling with work or needing help with just personal things in their life, you know. I think the biggest thing for me is to switch off and have your own personal time away from teaching and education, you know. Yeah, that's probably my biggest thing that I struggle with.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that in a similar way as a youth worker as well. Switching off is so difficult, especially when you care about your job.
That's the thing. I think when you actually genuinely care about what you do, it's so difficult to switch off from it. You know, I've seen me waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning thinking, oh my gosh, I didn't reply to that email, or yeah, I hope they're okay. I hope they understood that lesson today, or I taught that really badly. And you think, really? 3 o'clock in the morning?
Yeah, not the time.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I guess one of the questions is, what advice do you have for someone who is looking to get into teaching?
Do it. It's the best thing I've ever done. Yeah. I worked offshore before I became a teacher, and I worked offshore for 4 years. And I decided that I would go onshore and I would retrain as a teacher, and I have never looked back, and I never will look back. It is the best career ever. It's so incredibly rewarding. Pupils make it all the worthwhile. I love my kids with every ounce of my being. Like, genuinely, I love my kids. I love the subject that I teach. I just love being in school. I miss being in school just now. Yeah, I would say absolutely go for it. Just that the reward you get from a pupil who suddenly has clicked in a piece of learning or a bit of understanding that you've helped them achieve, or they've got that C or that B that they have worked so hard for. You have no idea how amazingly rewarding that is. I mean, genuinely, every time that awards get released in August, I am in tears. It's just being so proud of your kids, you know, knowing how hard they've worked. But yeah, it's just, yeah, working with young people is just the best thing. It's the best. You'll know that yourself, but
Yeah, no, definitely. That's the thing that keeps me in the job, no matter how hard it gets, is working with the kids.
Totally.
For sure.
Absolutely.
Because that must have been a huge change for you, going from like working offshore on like oil rigs with, I'm assuming, mostly adult men.
Yeah.
To like
I worked on an oil rig of 151 people and 4 of us were women.
Wow.
So yeah, it was a very big change, a completely different type of culture, a different type of just being, you know, massively fast-paced, pressure, very money-driven, which obviously I'm not quite so money-driven now. But just like the two cultures are totally different. I mean, I wouldn't change my experience from working offshore, because when I'm teaching a lot of stuff, like I can bring on a lot of that information and the kids find it fascinating and they ask me questions, etc. But yeah, I love working with young people.
Another question that we've got is, I want to be a teacher, but I'm scared of working with the kids who don't behave. How do you cope with that?
So I thought hard about this one actually. Is I struggled with this initially when I started as well, because I'm quite a happy-go-lucky person. I thought, gosh, what am I going to do if somebody is really out of order? And I find that I don't always come across this, or don't often come across this, because I think if you make your expectations and your rules of your classroom really clear from the start, then the kids know where the line is. They know how far they can have fun and they can be playful and they can enjoy their lesson and be talkative. But when you say enough is enough and you've got your rules and they're understanding and they've all agreed that these are the classroom rules, then in the main I don't have very many behavioural issues, because we as a classroom have agreed our, I would say almost like your classroom contract, because we've agreed our rules, you know. What do they expect from me as much as I expect from them in a classroom? So I get very little behavioural issues because I allow the fun time in my classroom and I allow the playful side. They're allowed to talk when they're doing group work, but when they've got to be quiet and listen to me, they have to be quiet and they have to listen to me, otherwise I'll miss instructions. And it's just striking that balance. But I 100% would go for being a teacher, even if you are a little bit nervous about that, because you would be surprised how quickly you adapt and you cope and you change and you become really resilient as a teacher.
So like actually talking about it in the room and not just
literally on my first day teaching them, if I have a brand new first year class in, I don't teach them any content for the first lesson at all. We as a class produce a classroom contract together that says, I won't speak over the top of Ms. Dempsey when she's given instructions. However, I am allowed to talk when X, Y, and Z. And we have that conversation and we see what's expected of each other. And then we come up with 3 final rules that all of the kids and myself sign. And we have it as a very literal contract, so that when somebody is being maybe a little out of order, all I do is go, excuse me, and point it, and they straight away, they tober it, because they're like, oh, I have agreed to this. And the same, you know, if somebody's asked me a question and I'm somehow now speaking over the top of them, they'll go, Miss Dempsey, and I'm like, oh, sorry. And it works 2 ways. It's about working 2 ways. It's not just about the kids respecting you as a teacher. It's about you also respecting them as pupils, you know. Like, I have a brilliant relationship with all my pupils. I know what they all do out of school, what their hobbies are, what their interests are. I know how many brothers and sisters they have, etc. For all of the 300 and something pupils that I teach, I know them inside and out. And I think a big thing is learning their names, know their names from day one, know who they are, what kind of people they are. And it's amazing how much, or how prepared a pupil will learn if they know something about you and how much you know about them. You know, if they know that you care, they do actually do work. They're happy to learn, you know. You know, if somebody's in their corner, it makes a big difference.
Absolutely.
So yeah, be a teacher is the best thing.
Gonna have so many young people becoming teachers after this. You are flying the flag for teaching.
Oh me.
Last question is, how overwhelming is it to start working in a new school?
Oh gosh. Yeah. I feel like a deer struck in the headlights on day one. It's scary. Yeah. It's very much like if you're in first year and you have got no idea where anything is, and simple things like not knowing where the bathroom is or knowing where the staff room is to get a cup of coffee. It's stressful. And also schools, they're big buildings, you know, they're really big buildings, and just trying to find your way around them is not very great sometimes. And I think folk assume that adults just know these things, you know. But no, it is very stressful. It's quite overwhelming. Pupils are really loyal, super loyal to their teachers who they know. And so coming in as a brand new teacher, and especially if you've taken over somebody else's job, or so for example, when I went to the job that I'm in just now, the guy who I'm kind of taking over from, he went from 5 days a week to 1 day a week. He ended up getting a job elsewhere and just wanted to do part-time. And oh my gosh, it took me maybe up until Christmas to kind of win these guys over, because they were so loyal to their original teacher that it's crazy how it's wonderful. I love how loyal they are, but it's hard work. It's really hard work trying to win them over. But yeah, I love it. It's the best thing ever, but I wouldn't be moving anytime soon. Yeah, it's scary, but I think for me, well, I think for a lot of people, change is scary in general. And I think if you're seen as that person, like the teacher who's meant to have their knowledge together, they're meant to have all their stuff together, it's quite scary being that person that's like, I actually have got no idea what's going on just now. It's terrifying.
Yeah,
teaching is really good. I would 100% recommend it to anybody who is thinking about it. But yeah, but just also know that your teachers do an awful lot of work behind the scenes when they're teaching you, you know. So I mean, it's not a job you wouldn't do unless you love it.
Yeah, I love how passionate you are about it. It's really nice to talk to someone who like genuinely really cares about their job, and
I love my job. Yeah, I do love
really
my job.
comes across. Thank you so much for giving up your time.
You're more than welcome.
And if any other questions come out, I'll maybe send you a wee message and get some answers back for that as well. Thank you everyone for watching as well. Hope you enjoyed this, and keep an eye out for our other employment videos. We've got another few interviews coming up really soon. Bye everyone.